don't have an anxiety problem, you have a thinking problem. Anxiety is one of those monsters under the bed that has become this massive problem worldwide. But what really is anxiety? I mean, unless you're diagnosed by a therapist as having anxiety, you don't have anxiety. You probably just feel anxious. There's a major difference between the two. Anxiety isn't like cancer. Most people don't have anxiety. They experience anxiety, as in the emotion. And to put that into context, I want you to write these 4 things down, or think about these 4 things in succession: beliefs, thoughts, emotions, physical reactions. So as an emotion, anxiety or feeling anxious comes after your thoughts. And so in order to recognize and do something about it, you have to take ownership that your anxiety is caused by you. It's a result of the way that you think about your circumstances and your problems, and it comes from your belief systems. A lot of beliefs have to do with should and should not. The world should be a certain way. People shouldn't act a certain way. You know, if you approach something with a whole bunch of should and should nots, then you're probably going to think a bunch of things that result in high anxiety, high anger. You're going to be highly emotionally responsive, and that's what anxiety is. In my opinion, from a performance psychology perspective, not a clinical, but a performance psychology, most often working with athletes and high performers, anxiety is anticipation of a future. You're anticipating something, and then you're having physical reactions like increased heart rate or muscle tension, right? If you're looking at going into an athletic event, or you're going into public speaking, that's a really strong one that a lot of people have to deal with. If you've ever experienced anxiety associated with public speaking, why? Who cares? The number one thing that most people are thinking about while you're up on stage is probably, I'm glad it's not me. You're fearing judgment, and you're having all these thoughts about, oh, what do they think about me, and all the what ifs, and what if I look silly, and oh my gosh, I'm so nervous. You're talking yourself into being nervous and anxious. It's the result of the way that you think, and then your behaviors reflect your thoughts. So you don't have an anxiety problem, you have a thinking problem. And until you take responsibility for your thought patterns and the belief systems that result in those thought patterns, you're always going to have an anxiety feeling, but it's not an anxiety problem. That's no different than going to the doctor and saying, oh, I've got this issue, and they diagnose the symptoms, and they give you medication of the symptoms, but they don't actually look at the root cause. The root cause of anxiety is the way that you think. You don't have an anxiety problem. You have a thinking problem.